Our story begins with our attention being brought to a damaged car. An injured man walks toward it with a machete. He peeks inside to see a bloody hand touching the window. That makes the man scream. As the title presents itself, a man starts narrating that this is his record. He says it was the summer of 2024 when the situation worsened. Walking corpses now exist among the survivors, appearing when the latter are scared. They are called companions. Then we see a lady walking inside a house with a dog. Her husband soon comes to her. He is Gus, the man we saw at the start, and she is Ella. The house they are occupying isn't theirs. They came there for supplies, because civilization is in ruins. Ella gets excited that the place is loaded with goods. She tells Gus she doesn't know how he kept them alive for so long. He tells her it's his keen sense of judgment, along with his excellent choice of traveling companions, referring to her. Once Ella is outside, he runs to her to inform her that on the outside, he is more worried about survivors than companions. After that, Gus enters the barn. As he places his machete on the ground, he injures himself by mistake. Shortly after, someone starts appearing nearby. Oddly, they have to glitch into existence. It is most likely one of the companions we learned about. They seem to appear with force, knocking materials down. Yet Gus acts unafraid, taunting the creature. We see him running outside afterward. The man soon enters a bathroom, where Ella sits inside a bathtub with a dog. Gus wants them to leave. However, Ella doesn't want to, reminding him that they agreed to stay there for one night. After urging her to go, she lets him know she isn't his dog. She then asks him if he saw something. He thinks he saw a woman's companion. Supposedly, people generate certain dangerous versions of themselves once something horrific happens to them. Ella says they are drawn to fear. All they have to do is avoid being afraid to be safe from the companion. She also says they don't go very far from where they lost their lives. What Ella wants is to have a break at the house for one night. It seems like Gus agrees, though he doesn't want her to go into the barn or out in the field. When she says companions can't touch them, he says it's the survivors he's worried about. The man is convinced something bad happened here. Later, we see Gus trying to open the trunk of a car by slamming it with an axe. At that moment, a man appears wearing preacher attire. Gus turns to witness a young lady there too. Unfortunately, he finds he now has a knife in his stomach. To make the situation even worse, a third man in overalls comes out. Who these people are is unknown. They are certainly survivors, the type of people Gus was afraid to encounter. He sits to pull the knife out of himself. Due to his wound, he struggles to tell the preacher that he's a doctor, but the man doesn't care what he is. He just holds the axe to Gus, asking if he's seen an angry man running around there. He refers to him as Abner. Gus just pleads with the preacher not to hurt his wife. The response he receives is that nothing happens in this world that isn't necessary. This preacher, whoever he is, seems to have a strong will. Perhaps even stronger is his desire to impose it. Back at the house, Ella runs, scared, because she sees someone is there. Then the preacher starts talking to her from behind the door. Although she informs him there is a companion there with her, he busts through the door anyway. She learns quickly he is not there to help, so she slices him before running away. While the preacher gives trouble to Ella at the house, we see Gus suffering outside. He observes his companion glitching into existence inside the car. It makes him scream in fear. Following this, the preacher breaks into the room Ella is hiding in. His arrogance comes out as he tells her she's looking for a savior. That prompts her to run out to Gus and tell him they have to hide. As she takes him to the car, he tells her to run. Before they can do anything, though, the man with overalls comes to harm Ella. He next hits Gus, yet Ella won't let herself go down easily, jumping on him. Despite her effort, the man manages to drag her away. On the next day, the preacher tells Gus he doesn't look like he will make it. According to him, people are savages nowadays. Gus just wants him to let Ella go. But the preacher loves hearing the sound of his own voice, ignoring Gus's concern. He says he's building an army. Soon enough, he addresses Gus by telling him to forget about Ella. While he continues to talk in a grandiose manner, a truck harshly makes its entrance near them. The man driving shoots the preacher. The young lady who was with him starts shooting at the newcomer, only to be shot down herself. Afterward comes a hand-to-hand fight with the man in the overalls. He proves to be the most problematic, making the fight last for about a minute. However, the stranger demonstrates superior skill in the end. He is most likely Abner, the man the preacher was referring to. A wounded Ella was there to witness his fight. For some reason, he tells the poor lady she has failed. To his rude first words, she insults him. He informs Ella that Gus is going to lose his life. He wants her to end him, because it will be an agonizing time for him. All she can do is cry upon hearing this. Shortly after, she comes to Gus as he lies injured on the couch. Abner is there with them, telling Ella to come with him, because she will perish by staying at the house with Gus. Abner wants to catch the preacher, who seems to have survived. Gus agrees with him that she should go. Soon enough, it seems like tragedy strikes for Ella, and Gus loses his life. This brings the young lady to tears. After that, the two of them ride out together in Abner's truck. He has some supplies in the backseat, including handcuffs. As they ride, Ella asks him if he's going to hurt her. His answer is interesting, he doesn't have time to. He proves it by handing her a gun. It doesn't take long for her to vomit in his truck, causing him to stop driving. When Abner gets out to come to her side, Ella demands that he strips. Since she holds the gun, he is forced to obey her. She wants to know what the handcuffs are for. He says he gets scared, so he uses them to cuff himself to the bumper. That way, fear can't be used against him. Intrigued by his answer, Ella wants him to teach her to do that before letting the man back inside his truck. The duo then stops somewhere, with the purpose of Abner collecting gas from a useless car. He wants Ella to learn how to do it, yet she does not want to. It prompts her to hit him due to his persistence. She worries that Gus will turn into a companion. Soon she observes someone running, which makes her run after them. Abner yells out that she can't save everyone. Ella stops once she sees the person standing on a bus. It seems like it was the girl's companion, because the girl suddenly appears near Ella to urge her to run together. As they do, a companion inside another bus catches the young girl to claim her life. That is the kind of ruthless world they are living in. Ella enters the bus to see the companion sitting there. It takes Abner to drag the lady out of that dangerous area. When he does, the companion glitches inside, confined to that small space for a reason we don't understand. The duo runs away, and Abner gets knocked down by the ghost-like companion. He stands to look at her, only to get knocked back again. It seems like she was able to go a bit further, but near the car, we see her limits. Ella believes she is trying to talk to them. Back at the house, we observe that in fact, Gus did not lose his life. He drags himself across the floor. Upon leveling himself, Gus shows how angry he is with his situation. Soon he takes out a ring to look at it. It was probably for Ella. The poor man tosses it away, not having had a chance to give it to her. After that, the man yells out to the companion, asking why it's still there. He wants it to say something. So Gus walks over to open the sliding glass door, only to see the preacher standing there. The next scene has Ella practicing shooting cans with the handgun. She considers it wasting ammo, yet Abner has a different opinion. She also calls him useless. The man responds that she should have taken her husband's life. However, she tells him he lost it while fighting for her. Ella lets Abner know she wants to claim his life instead, so he takes the gun in her hand to point it at himself in frustration. They are currently not getting along well in these tough times. Switching back to Gus, the man just communicates with the preacher in a normal way rather than fighting. But when the preacher tells him to let go of Ella, that prompts Gus to toss some things at him. He's also doing it because of his residual anger toward the man who wronged him. In his defense, the preacher says he could have taken Gus's life with the axe, though he did not. Then Gus asks if the preacher wants him to be his soldier. We should remember the preacher talked about building an army. He replies that he doesn't have soldiers, he has orders. Those orders are from God. His answer makes Gus laugh, relevant to their apocalyptic situation. The preacher says it took people thousands of years to exit the Dark Ages. They can either correct their similar point in time or let people suffer. The one making people suffer is the preacher, Gus tells him. Following this, he surprisingly brings some sugar to help with the preacher's wounds. He says it will keep pH levels low. Doing so will make it harder for bacteria to develop. Gus says he's helping the preacher because the man who has Ella is after him. At night, Abner and Ella talk. She tells him about stingrays, with their ability to detect auras. Abner tells her he used to be a welder. Messing with him, she says he doesn't have an aura, while holding her hands toward him as if to sense it. Shortly after, they speak some more about survival in their dangerous world. During the day, Ella sits in Abner's truck, where she finds a picture of his family. Suddenly, the radio turns on. She sees a companion outside, whose face soon protrudes through the covering on the window. Frightened, Ella escapes from the passenger side to hide under the vehicle, though it's unsafe there too, because someone reaches out to injure her arm. She then emerges and goes to collect the handgun inside the truck. Much to her chagrin, a companion is there to take her, but he only manages to vomit on her. Afterward, a man who isn't a companion comes to her with a bow. He is likely the one who injured her arm. While he's readying his weapon, Ella shoots him. However, he shoots an arrow into the lady's arm and strikes her down. What is this survivor's problem? When he takes her gun to start walking away with it, he soon encounters Abner. We should wonder what he was doing all this time. The man uses his knife to fight the bandit. Meanwhile, Ella removes the arrow from her arm. As the bandit readies his bow to fire at Abner, Ella saves him by slamming the lunatic with the truck. That is not enough for her. She finishes the job by using Abner's knife on him. Once all that chaos gets dealt with, she asks Abner where he was. He informs her he was talking to his son. Back at the truck, she discovers Abner's son lost his life. That leads her to remember Gus, to whom she wants to return to give him a proper burial. In the next scene, Gus sits with the preacher, talking about going to Boca. The preacher says he got close, but he ran into Abner. Gus considers this to be an appropriate time to call him a monster. He says that even if he is right, he can't make people follow him. In a short time, a stranger charges at the preacher to punch him down. Why does every survivor have to be hostile? Gus tries helping him. His help allows the preacher to gain the upper hand and use his knife to finish the man. Another one comes out, whom Gus shoots. Once it is over, Gus asks the preacher if he's ever seen the companion of someone who is still alive. His new partner wants to know who he means, yet Gus doesn't answer. He just cries. For the first time, we witness the preacher comforting someone as he holds Gus. There is some humanity in him after all. Later, Abner says he does not know where the preacher is going. Ella has that information, saying he's going to Boca. However, Abner does not want to go back there. Upon asking him what he means by going back, he says his family is buried there. Then Ella ponders if Gus is still alive. To that, Abner assures her they can find help. He also says that if Gus is going to Boca, he can get them there. Eventually, they return to the house they left Gus at. Abner walks inside the barn, calling out to him. After that, he goes to see the young lady he shot, who was with the preacher. Her companion stands near him. We see how strong they are when she strikes Abner. He gets sent back a few dozen feet away. It's a miracle he doesn't lose his life, or even his consciousness. The companion starts coming at him in a very creepy way, but he finds refuge by entering the house. Inside, Ella grabs him to yell that he was wrong about Gus. Since he isn't there, she knows he's alive. Once the duo walks outside, the companion slams Abner again. Ella runs to the truck while he shoots the monster. Alas, his bullets are to no avail. He gets saved by Ella driving the truck back to instruct him to jump in. Afterward, they arrive at Boca. As a result, we are introduced to new people. Ella knocks on the door of a house, causing the man to open it with a gun pointing at her. Abner knows him, greeting him as Merritt. Inside his place, Abner asks him about the preacher. Merritt talks for a while. Soon enough, Ella asks what happened to him. Merritt says he... Of course, Ella also wants to know whether he was alone. Merritt thinks he was. We know the man is lying, but what for? Ari, his girlfriend, says to take Merritt with them. We then witness Ella and Abner lying in a comfortable bed at last. Finally, a relaxing moment for them. Ella wonders if the preacher ended Gus. They will find out in the morning, is what Abner tells her. Soon enough, she starts reciting a poem to him. After finishing it, she says she performed it at a talent show. Gus liked it a lot. Switching topics, Ella asks Abner what he thinks companions are. His answer is interesting because he thinks they are punishment. That makes Ella wonder what they are punishments for. Shortly after, she nervously remembers she left her gun in the kitchen. Following this, Ella goes to the kitchen to retrieve it. Perry is there, lying in bed, looking like a companion. Somehow Ella does not notice that. She stands behind Ella as she is turning off the loud radio. Yet Ari disappears once Ella turns around. Next, Abner comes to Merritt, who is using a radio. Abner asks him who he was talking to, as he points his gun at him. Merritt reveals it was the preacher. His reason for talking to him is that Ari is sick, and the preacher is going to help her. Ella is now there to ask how long it will take for the man to arrive. Since Merritt says the preacher will be there in about 15 minutes, Abner instructs them to leave. Though Merritt is fearful of losing his life out there, he also tells Abner his ranch is ruined. He might even meet his companion there. The next scene shows Abner with Ella elsewhere, talking about what they are going to do. Suddenly, a companion walks out of the water to startle the duo. It happens to be Abner's son. He walks away, causing Abner to follow him. The man starts walking through a narrow area at a ranch, where many companions reach their arms through cages to grab at him. His son's companion soon appears to come at him as well. Abner ends up running into the barn. He sees his son sitting there, so he tells him he was a good boy who did what he was told. After his son acts up, Abner runs outside to see a healthy Gus standing before him. He comes at Abner with a vengeful purpose, but Abner uses a car door to skillfully slam him down. As the man calls out to his son, Gus takes advantage of that moment to grab him from behind. Since Gus is there, we expect the preacher to be there too. We see him yelling at the sky that they're in the dark. He seems to be upset with God. The fight between Abner and Gus gets the latter stuck in barbed wires. Once he is in such a trapped state, the first thing Abner tells him is that they went back for him. Yet Gus replies that they left him there. He also says Abner knew he was alive. Then Abner runs away to leave him there. Later, the preacher comes to Gus, disappointed at the sight of his trapped state. It prompts him to take his gun out to end Gus, though Abner attacks him just in time. Meanwhile, Gus escapes from the barbed wires. Later, Ella finds a wounded Abner resting. It seems like the preacher proved himself to be a formidable fighter. His wounded state saddens Ella, saying she needs him. Before crying, she says he can now go with his son. After that, it looks like Abner either loses consciousness or his life. Alone now, Ella enters a certain property. In there, she sees a woman's companion. Shortly after, the preacher is there to deliver a sneak attack on her with an axe. Fortunately, he misses our heroine. He ends up landing hits on her when they're outside. However, none of them are with the sharp end. At that moment, the companion screams behind him. It comes as a surprise that he yells he's doing this for her. Supposedly, it was the preacher's house they were just occupying, and the woman was his wife. While he yells those words, Ella manages to run away. Soon enough, the preacher finds her elsewhere, where the radio is playing. He informs her that people came under the confession of a madman. There was supposed to be a man there talking on the radio, to give people hope about where they could go. Instead, Ella observes it is just a skeleton that sits there. The tapes have been set on replay. After Ella kicks the skeleton out of anger, Gus appears and ties barbed wire around the preacher's neck. In the meantime, Ella stabs him until he falls, deceased. The man is finally gone, and Ella reunites with her husband. She hugs him, saying she never thought she would again. When she questions whether he ended Abner, he informs her of what took place. Ella tells him that Abner was good, even though he made some mistakes. Changing to a more important topic, Gus delivers the harsh truth that no one is going to save them. Of course, Ella already knows that. She replies that they will save themselves. She also wants her ring back, but the man says he left it at the farmhouse. He apologizes for it before they kiss. Later, the couple talks about Abner. Gus is upset that she had to travel with him. Ella believes they should talk about it. Gus, behaving very agitated, wants to know what she spoke about with the cowboy, as he calls Abner. He then says she didn't want him to lose his life. Ella just responds that Abner didn't deserve to. After she tells him she went into the barn, Gus loses his calm and yells that he told her not to go in there. On the next day, Gus tells her something very upsetting for him. He saw her crying over Abner. He was in the trees. Upon stating that she loves him, Ella attempts to strike Gus, yet he catches her hand to push her down. She gets up to witness his companion sitting in the car, so she runs into the barn, where she sees her companion. Now we understand why Gus was so upset about her going there. She screams in fear before getting knocked unconscious with a shovel. Then she wakes up to learn she is handcuffed to chains. Gus gives her the macabre news that they will both meet their demise there. According to him, there is no end to the suffering in their apocalyptic world. Ella, however, is stronger than he is, saying they could fight the world together. Since his mind cannot be changed, Ella hurts him, even though she is bound. She demands that he gives her the keys to the handcuffs, but he threw them in the field. That prompts her to hurt his open wound even more. Afterward, Gus walks back to the car that contains his companion. He remembers the horror of having witnessed it for the first time. Next, he takes the ring out of his wounded stomach. He lied to Ella about where he left it. Soon enough, Gus sits in the car and passes out. Meanwhile, Ella's companion approaches her, which causes her to scream. There is nothing she can do to escape her situation.